I looked at my phone and saw 16 missed calls from my sister, Jessica, as she stood outside the house I'd secretly sold while she was on vacation, screaming at a stranger who was currently tossing her designer bags into the gutter. My father told me that if I evicted his favorite daughter, he would fire me from the family business and make sure I never worked in the state again. He thought he had me trapped in a corner. He didn't realize that while he was busy protecting Jessica's entitlement, I was busy signing a deed of sale and a one-way ticket to Lowe's Angels. Welcome to Hidden Secrets, where family betrayals never stay buried. Stories like this only get darker, so stick around. If you want to see how a toxic family empire crumbles when the responsible child finally snaps, consider subscribing. My name is Roxanne, and in the city of Louisville, Kentucky, my father, Marcus, is a man who thinks his name carries the weight of a king. He owns Sterling Fine Furnishings, a high-end furniture brand that I've spent the last 8 years of my life managing. I'm the one who handles the logistics, the marketing, and the million-dollar contracts. My sister, Jessica, is the one who handles the image, which is just a polite way of saying she spends our father's money while looking pretty in the front office. 3 months ago, Jessica's life of luxury came crashing down. Her wealthy husband finally grew tired of her $10,000 a month incidentals and served her with divorce papers that included a rock-solid prenup. She was out on the street with nothing but 20 suitcases of Chanel and a bruised ego. Naturally, Marcus called me, not to ask how my quarter was going, but to issue a command. "Roxanne, your sister is in a crisis," he said, his voice booming through the speaker of my desk phone. "She's moving into your guest room until she gets back on her feet." "Dad, I live in a 2-bedroom cottage," I replied, feeling that familiar tightening in my chest. "I work from home 3 days a week. I don't have space for her and her entire wardrobe." "Make space," he snapped. "Family looks out for family. Besides, I pay your salary. Consider this an unofficial job requirement." That was Marcus's favorite weapon, the overlap between my bloodline and my paycheck. I reluctantly agreed, thinking it would be for a few weeks. I was wrong. Jessica didn't move in, she invaded. She arrived in a black SUV packed to the ceiling. Within 48 hours, my serene, minimalist home smelled like a mixture of expensive perfume and entitlement. She didn't ask for shelf space, she took it. She didn't offer to pay for groceries. She ate mine and complained that I didn't buy the organic, hand-pressed almond milk she liked. The betrayal wasn't one single event. It was a slow, agonizing erosion of my sanity. 2 weeks into her stay, I came home from a late shift at the showroom to find my living room walls, which I had painted a calming sage green, covered in a horrific, bright Barbie pink. "Surprise!" Jessica squealed, holding a glass of my most expensive wine. "The green was so depressing, Roxy. This pops much better for my TikTok backgrounds. Also, I moved your home office into the garage." I needed the extra room for my shoe collection. I looked at the garage door. My monitors, my ergonomic chair, and my files were sitting on the concrete floor near the lawnmower. "You had no right, Jessica," I whispered, my voice shaking. "This is my house. I pay the mortgage." "Oh, stop being such a martyr," she scoffed, waving a hand. "Dad said he'd cover the paint costs. Anyway, I'm having a few people over tonight. You might want to grab some earplugs." That night, my modest sanctuary was turned into a frat house for 30-somethings who should have known better. I retreated to the garage, sitting among my father's furniture prototypes, realizing that in my family, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was a service provider. I checked my bank app to see if I could afford a hotel for the night. My breath hitched. There was a pending charge for $3,200 at a luxury spa in Lexington. Jessica had gone into my purse, taken my emergency credit card, and treated her stressed-out friends to a day of pampering. I didn't scream. I didn't even go inside to confront her. I sat in the cold Kentucky air, looking at the house I had worked so hard to buy, and realized that as long as I lived in the city, I would never be free. I pulled up my email and looked at a message I had ignored for months. It was from a headhunter in Lowe's Angels. Director of Marketing. "Double the salary, full relocation package." I hit reply. "I'm interested," I typed, "but I need to move fast, like mid-June fast." I looked at my pink house and the sister laughing inside it. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to disappear. The arrogance of my family was a well-oiled machine. By the time the first Monday of the month rolled around, Jessica wasn't even pretending to be a guest anymore. She was the self-appointed queen of my property. I walked into my kitchen at 7:00 a.m. to find the sink overflowing with crusty dishes from her after party. and the smell of stale cigarettes clinging to my $4,000 custom-made sofa, a prototype from the company I helped build. "Jessica, we need to talk about the credit card charges," I said, dropping the printed bank statement on the counter where she was scrolling through a designer sale on her laptop. $3,000 at a spa. $500 at a steakhouse in Cincinnati? This is fraud, Jessica, pure and simple. She didn't even look up. She just sighed, that long, theatrical sigh that Marcus had trained her to use whenever I dared to bring up minor things like reality or money. "Roxy, don't be so small-minded," she drawled. "I'm going through a divorce. I need to maintain my social standing. If I look like a hermit, my ex-husband wins. Besides, Dad said he'd adjust your bonus this year to cover my expenses." "It's all the same pot of money, isn't it?" My blood turned to ice. "Adjust my bonus? You mean the bonus I earned for increasing our showroom's revenue by 20%? That's not your money, Jess, that's my livelihood. Everything you have is because of Dad," she snapped, finally looking at me with eyes full of cold entitlement. "The house, the job, the car, you're just the manager, Roxanne. I'm the legacy. Get used to it." I didn't argue. I knew where this was going. I drove straight to the Sterling Fine Furnishings corporate office. I didn't even go to my desk. I walked straight into Marcus's mahogany-paneled corner office. "Dad, Jessica has to go," I said, my voice firm despite the way my hands were trembling. "She maxed out my credit card. She repainted my house without permission. She's treating me like a servant." Marcus didn't even put down his fountain pen. He was reviewing the quarterly projections that I had stayed up until 2:00 a.m. to finalize. "She's your sister, Roxanne," he said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "She is fragile right now. You are stable. It is the job of the stable to support the fragile." "She's not fragile, Dad. She's a predator. I want her out of my house by the weekend." Marcus finally looked up. The mask of the proud father dropped, revealing the authoritarian businessman underneath. "Listen to me very carefully. If you put Jessica on the street, you are effectively resigning from this company. And since I know your mortgage is tied to your employment verification, I wouldn't advise making any rash moves. I will fire you, I will blackball you in Louisville, and I will make sure every furniture rep from here to High Point knows you're unstable." Is that clear? The psychological struggle was suffocating. I felt like I was drowning in a river of his making. He wasn't just my father, he was my jailer. He used my career, the thing I loved most, as a leash to keep me tethered to Jessica's whims. I walked back to my office, the air in the building feeling thinner than usual. I looked at the photos on my desk, me at my graduation, Marcus standing behind me, his hand on my shoulder like a grip of iron. I realized then that every gift he had ever given me was actually a mortgage on my soul. The stakes were now my home, my reputation, and my entire professional future. If I stayed, I would be Jessica's personal ATM and Marcus's corporate slave for the rest of my life. I sat down at my computer. I didn't work on the marketing plan for the fall collection. Instead, I opened a private browser. I checked the Zillow Zestimate for my cottage. In the current Louisville market, property values had spiked. I had nearly $150,000 in equity. I called a high-end, off-market, real estate broker I knew through my work at the showroom, a man named Silas who dealt in quick, quiet cash sales for wealthy investors. "Silas, it's Roxanne Sterling," I whispered into my headset. "I have a 2-bedroom in the Highlands. I need a quiet sale. Cash. No for sale sign in the yard. No public listings. I need it closed in 3 weeks. For you, Roxanne, I have a developer who's been eyeing that block for a month. He'll buy it sight unseen if the price is right. But why the rush?" "I'm moving," I said, "and I don't want anyone to know until the ink is dry." The moment I hung up, I felt a surge of electricity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't playing by Marcus's rules. That evening, I went home to find Jessica hosting a divorce party. There were strangers in my kitchen, red wine stains on my cream-colored rug, and someone was using my father's prototype chair, a one-of-a-kind piece, as a footstool. "Roxy, you're home," Jessica yelled over the music, her face flushed with expensive champagne. "Dad sent over a case of crystal. He said you wouldn't mind if we used the garage for the caterers." I looked at the chaos. I looked at the pink walls. I looked at the woman who thought she had successfully dismantled my life. "I don't mind at all, Jess," I said, a terrifyingly calm smile spreading across my face. "In fact, why don't you take that trip to the Hamptons you were talking about next week? Dad's paying, right? You deserve a break." "Really? You're not going to nag me about the budget?" she asked, blinking in surprise. "Not at all. Stay as long as you want. Enjoy yourself." I walked to the garage, stepping over a crate of expensive seafood, and began packing a single suitcase with my most important documents: my passport, my deed, and my new contract for the job in Los Angeles. The plan was in motion. They thought they had backed me into a corner, but they forgot one thing: I was the one who managed the Sterling Empire. I knew exactly how to dismantle a kingdom from the inside out. The countdown to mid-June had begun. The silent plan wasn't built on a foundation of anger. It was built on a foundation of cold, hard logistics. As a marketing manager, I knew how to control a narrative. In the United States, your life is essentially a collection of data points: mortgages, employment records, and utility bills. If you want to disappear, you don't just run, you rewrite the data. Step 1 of my strategy was the quiet liquidation. My broker, Silas, came through within 48 hours. He found a private equity investor who was buying up properties in the Highlands to turn them into high-end rentals. They offered me $415,000, cash. Because it was an off-market deal, there was no "for sale" sign on the lawn for my father to see on his drive to the showroom. I signed the electronic closing documents in the back of a Starbucks 3 miles from the office, my hands steady as I transferred the title of my home to an anonymous LLC. Step 2 was the corporate decoupling. I knew Marcus would try to freeze my accounts or sue me for abandoning the company. I spent my lunch breaks at a branch of a national bank he didn't use, opening a solo account and moving my savings, every cent of that hard-earned bonus, into a place his influence couldn't reach. I also drafted a formal resignation letter, citing unreconcilable differences in corporate governance, and set it to auto-send from my work email for the following Friday at 5:00 p.m. Step 3 was the Hamptons diversion. I needed Jessica out of the house. On Friday morning, I left a gift on the kitchen counter, a printed itinerary for a 5-day luxury retreat at a boutique hotel in the Hamptons. "I talked to Dad," I lied, keeping my voice smooth. He agreed that you need a post-divorce healing trip. It's all booked. First-class flight leaves Sunday morning. Jessica practically vibrated with excitement. "Oh, Roxy, finally you're acting like a real sister. I'll be back on Thursday. Make sure you have the house cleaned by then. The pink walls need a second coat of glitter gloss anyway." I watched her pack her 10 suitcases. I even helped her load the Uber. As the car pulled away toward the airport, I didn't feel a flicker of guilt. I felt the weight of the world lifting off my shoulders. The moment she was gone, the clock started ticking. I had exactly 72 hours before the new owners took possession of the house. I didn't hire a moving company. That was too much of a paper trail. Instead, I rented a nondescript white box truck under a friend's name. I spent the weekend stripping my life down to the essentials. I took my computer, my clothes, and my most precious mementos. As for Jessica's things, I didn't touch them. I didn't have to. Under the terms of the sale, the house was sold as is, including all contents not removed by the seller. Legally, her $50,000 wardrobe and her Barbie pink furniture now belonged to a corporate entity that didn't know she existed. By Sunday night, the house was an empty shell, save for the mountain of Jessica's designer clutter in the guest room. I stood in the middle of the pink living room, the silence finally returning to the space. I pulled out my phone and checked my new company's portal. My relocation flight to Los Angeles was confirmed for 6:00 a.m. Monday. I took one last look at the garage where my father's Sterling prototypes were stored. I knew Marcus would be furious when he realized he'd lost his best manager and his prototype collection in one fell swoop. But in the US, a deal is a deal. The deed was recorded. The money was in my new account. The psychological tension was a dull hum in the back of my mind. Would Marcus try to stop the plane? Would he call the police? No. Marcus hated public scandals more than he hated me. He wouldn't call the cops because that would mean admitting his daughter had outplayed him. I left the keys on the kitchen counter next to a folder containing the new owner's contact information and the recorded deed of sale. Monday morning at 5:00 a.m., I boarded the flight. As the plane banked over the Ohio River, I looked down at Louisville. Somewhere down there, Marcus was waking up to a Monday morning at a company that was about to find out exactly how much of its success was built on the daughter he had tried to break. And somewhere over the Atlantic, Jessica was sipping a mimosa, completely unaware that she was currently a trespasser in a house she no longer had a key for. The execution was complete. All that was left was the downfall. The downfall didn't happen with a bang. It happened with a click, the sound of a key that no longer turned in a lock. I was sitting in a sun-drenched cafe in Santa Monica, the Pacific breeze finally cooling the fire that had been burning in my chest for years. I had my new corporate laptop open, and my phone, now registered to a new number that only my closest friends had, sat silent on the table. Then, I decided it was time. I turned on my old Kentucky SIM card for exactly 10 minutes. The notifications hit my phone like a barrage of gunfire. 48 missed calls from Marcus, 62 missed calls from Jessica, 114 text messages. I ignored the threats and scrolled straight to the voicemails. The first one was from Jessica, recorded at 4:15 p.m. on Thursday. Her voice was high-pitched, vibrating with a mixture of confusion and fury. "Roxy, why is there a man in a suit standing on the porch? He says he's the property manager for an investment group. He won't let me in. He says my key is invalid. Tell this creep who I am right now." The next one, 10 minutes later, was pure hysteria. "Roxanne, where's my stuff? He's putting my bags in the driveway. He says the house was sold as is and anything left behind is considered abandoned property. Call me back." Then came the heavy hitter, Marcus. His voice wasn't screaming. It was that low, vibrating tone he used before he fired someone. "Roxanne Sterling, I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but you have exactly 1 hour to fix this. You sold the house? Without my permission, you're done. Consider yourself fired. I'm calling our lawyers and I'm going to make sure you never handle a piece of furniture again. You've crossed a line, girl." I listened to his threats and felt nothing. No fear, no guilt, only a profound sense of relief. The public humiliation in the United States, the family empire, is built on a foundation of credit and public perception. By selling the house to a private equity firm, I hadn't just evicted my sister. I had triggered a financial domino effect. Because I had resigned and taken the company's most valuable intellectual property, the marketing strategies and client lists I had built, Sterling Fine Furnishings began to bleed. I found out later through a former colleague that without my management, Marcus couldn't fulfill the fall contracts. He had the furniture, but he didn't have the logistics. 2 of our biggest retail partners in the Midwest pulled their contracts within 3 weeks, citing unreliable leadership. But the real karma hit Jessica. The investment firm that bought my house didn't care about the Sterling name. They weren't intimidated by Marcus. When Jessica refused to leave the driveway, they didn't call our father. They called the Louisville Metro Police. Jessica, who had never been told no in her entire life, made the mistake of screaming at the responding officers. She was arrested for criminal trespass and disorderly conduct. The Golden Child spent the night in a holding cell with her Hamptons tan fading under fluorescent lights. The empire crumbles, the downfall was swift. Without my salary to adjust, Marcus had to fund Jessica's lifestyle out of his own pocket. But the business was failing. To keep the showroom open, he had to take out a high-interest bridge loan. Within 6 months, the Sterling reputation was in tatters. The final blow came when the bank initiated a foreclosure on my father's ancestral estate. He had leveraged the house to save the business, and he lost both. Marcus, the king of Louisville furniture, was forced to sell his luxury SUV and move into a modest apartment, ironically, in a neighborhood he used to call beneath him. Jessica's husband's lawyers used the disorderly conduct arrest to slash her alimony even further. Last I heard, she was living in Marcus's spare bedroom, the 2 of them trapped in a cycle of blaming each other for a catastrophe they both created. An empowered future as for me. Lowe's Angels was the reset I didn't know I needed. My new company doesn't care who my father is. They care that I can move product and build brands. Within 4 months, I was promoted to senior vice president. I live in a condo with white walls, not pink, and my office has a view of the ocean, not a lawnmower. I learned a hard lesson. Family isn't a suicide pact. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep people warm who wouldn't even hand you a glass of water. Financial independence wasn't just about the money in my bank account. It was the FU fund that bought my freedom. I am Roxanne, and I am no longer the manager of someone else's legacy. I am the CEO of my own life. I looked at my phone one last time before dropping the old SIM card into the trash can. The final message was from Marcus, sent just an hour ago. "Roxanne, please, we need you back. The business is gone. Jessica is. She's a mess. We're family. Can you help us?" I didn't type a word. I just hit delete. Subscribe for more true stories like this, where family betrayals never stay buried, but the victims finally find their way to the sun.